This is TWiT.
I wanted to really address what's going on in this country, but I didn't know if it fit in with the format of TWiT, and I also wanted to get somebody on who really could speak to this, a beloved friend we haven't seen in a while, but I know who's somebody whose heart and mind are in this problem, and it's Baratunde Thurston, the author of How to Be Black. I almost feel like you need to write a new book, How to Be White in this world, where
that is someone else's job, Leo. But that book should be written.
It needs to be written. It needs to be written.
Read and endorse it, assuming it's pretty good. Yeah.
First of all, let me ask how you are.
So thank you for having me on. It's been a while.
It has.
And it's good to hear your voice. I brought my own super serious microphone, so I hope the audience can.
It sounds beautiful,
understand.
man.
I was trying to channel my inner Leo and just add a little extra bass to a voice that's already filled with bass, of course. But so it's good to see you. It's good to be back, and I love your audience as well as you.
They love you. Yeah.
And and thanks for asking how I'm doing. I am up and down and exhausted and a little excited and a lot nervous. I think this week, the past 7 days have been quite exhausting.
For all of us.
Yes. And so I think it's sort of, and it comes on the heels of
exhaustion,
right? Like,
months of exhaustion.
If not a marathon, a good 800-meter run, which is like a serious track event for anyone who didn't know that. And then at the end of that race, coach is like, I need you to do the 200 hurdles.
Yeah.
Backwards, right? Like, so just that's kind of where my energy is. It's kind of low, a little manic,
right?
Worried, and somewhat motivated in terms of the hints of good things I'm seeing, but also just like, maybe, just not a full predictive commitment to like a great outcome of all this either, because we've been through so much of this before.
It is. I mean, what's interesting is that the video of George Floyd's murder was so vivid and so clear and so unequivocal that even people like Jeanine Pirro on Fox News had to say, this is awful, it's appalling, I'm shocked. Even people who would have normally made excuses couldn't look at it and say, oh, well, it was clear.
Yeah.
On the other hand, somebody like a person of color, an African-American, especially an African-American man living in a big city, must have looked at this. And what was your reaction when you first saw it?
Listen, so the way I came to George Floyd's story and his tragic end was actually by way of a woman named Amy Cooper. And so the news junkies amongst your listeners will already know who I'm referring to, but there was an interesting coincidence on one Monday ago where we actually had two racialized policing events happen in the United States. In the morning in Central Park, a black man was bird watching in a section of the park where you're supposed to keep your dog on a leash so they don't trash the bird life. And a white woman, Amy Cooper, was with her dog unleashed. And so the man, coincidentally named Christian Cooper, no relation, calls her out, says, hey, you need to put your dog on a leash. And she's like, nah, I'm not going to do it. Please put your dog on a leash. I'm not going to do it. They go back and forth. He starts offering her dog treats, which he has learned as an avid bird watcher. He's literally like a board member of the New York Audubon Society. If you offer somebody, stranger dog treats, that owner will bring their dog to heel, put the dog on a leash, because nobody wants strangers feeding their dog. So she gets super offended by this. She's demanding that he stop recording her on the phone, which he had started doing because she was getting super agitated. She goes up, points her finger in his face in a very non-socially distant, social distance adhering fashion, and threatens him. I'm going to call the police and tell them that an African-American man is threatening my life. Just says it point blank. And he wasn't, but that's what she said she was going to do.
And if you're
And
a
then
black
she
man
did.
in America, that's a
Right.
death threat.
That's a potential death sentence, right? And that has been a theoretical outcome and an actual outcome all too often. I did a whole TED talk just about the phenomenon of white people, largely women, calling the cops on black people for just living their lives. And it doesn't get more life living-ish than bird watching, right? You want to talk about non-threatening person. Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So she offers such clarity. And then she calls and she puts on a bit of a performance for the 911 dispatcher. She claims not only is he trying to threaten her, he's threatening her dog while she is choking the dog on camera. This is all on camera. And then she starts crying a bit. Says, send the cops immediately. He's African-American. She said it like 5 times, like it was a slur. African-American man, he's threatening me. He's threatening my life. He's threatening my dog. Send the cops immediately. And the video ends with him thanking her. And nothing happened to him other than he got a lot of sympathy from people all across this country because this person abused the power that she has. And the outcome of what she did to him could have been what happened to George Floyd, which happened that very night, also Monday, 1,000 or so miles away in Minneapolis. And we have all seen this snuff film, this assassination tape of one law enforcement officer persisting and applying pressure to the human neck with his knee to a man lying in a prone position, handcuffs behind his back for 9 minutes, it turns out. 9 minutes. And 3 other officers doing nothing about it while it's all being filmed, while passersby are saying, stop that, you're going to kill him, while the man himself is saying, I can't breathe, reminiscent of Eric Garner in Staten Island a few years ago, who died of an illegal chokehold implemented by Officer Pantaleo. So it was a Tuesday is when all this stuff was coming out, and Wednesday's when it really landed. And so for me, it was partially, didn't these people see my TED Talk? Like I tried to tell you, like I put it in a format. I had the jokes, right? This sort of a ridiculous response. There was anger, a ton of anger. I couldn't have asked for a better lesson for people who refused to listen the thousands of times this has happened before. Well, here it's all laid out pretty cleanly for you. And so often, as you pointed out, Leo, the victims in these circumstances are someone comes up with an excuse for why it was okay for them to be killed. The officer was threatening, feeling threatened. His life was in danger. It was a split-second decision. The person was armed. They were running. They were moving.
None
they
of
were
that
reaching.
here. None of that.
The civil rights movement often moved forward and strategically tried to find perfect victims because it knew the conscience of white America would refuse to awaken with anyone less than perfect. And so there were like castings almost to find someone who didn't have any kind of drama in their past, who could be in front of the march, who could be on camera. And that wasn't the case here. It just happened that way. But yeah, it's sad because it's so not new.
Well, I'll tell you what else is sad is post-mortem, it continues because the coroner's report attempted to bring up all sorts of, qualifying conditions, heart condition, diabetes. They even said possible intoxicants, even though there was the medical lab reports aren't out yet and won't be out for some time.
But we know
it's so shameful.
We know my politics are very straightforward, and your listeners know that. So it will come as no surprise my opinion about the president of this country. But I think in this regard, it's potentially universally acceptable what I'm about to say. The president of this country does not behave in a decent way, right? Even if you love his tax plan and you love his stance on immigrants, he is an indecent being. The way he performs, the way he holds the office, the language he uses, the way he uses Twitter, the way he bullies victims. It's just like, it's very hard to look at your child and say, I want you to behave the way the president of the United States. It doesn't matter what his defenders say. It doesn't matter what a pundit says. Even his biggest fans know he does not behave well. And so I think, the coroner is going to have a report. There was some delay in the prosecution. We all saw it. I'm seeing videos of uniformed law enforcement officers saying no. I'm seeing a police chief of Houston march with Black Lives Matter saying no.
I love that.
And it's so rare for police to break ranks with their fraternal organization. Right. So we all know what we saw. I think that there are questions that emerge. What are we going to do? And I think for those who look down on the actions of that officer, look down on the actions of the Amy Coopers of the world who would call that officer to the scene and unleash him on a Black person for forgery or bird watching, neither of which should result in death, then I think there's a question of what to do with the power that this country has granted you. And that's what I've started to look at this week and try to think about for the folks who listen to me. Right. A lot is made about white privilege and white supremacy, and that triggers a response in a lot of white people. I don't feel so privileged. I don't feel very powerful. And for those who acknowledge it, I don't want it. It's guilty. I'm not. You have the whole white guilt thing, and it's very useless to feel guilty about something like that. But here's what's true: this country confers a lot of extra consideration and higher, rated outcomes to white people in this country in so many different areas. And this week made it so starkly clear. So what do you do with that power? And signs of hope that I've seen this week. You use it, as a lot of white people did in the protest in Minneapolis, to create a line between the police and the Black protesters, because they're less likely to beat up white people, especially on camera. You use it to send funds to the Minnesota Defense League and all these bailout organizations across the country, because who's more likely to get arrested. And you take that hyper responsiveness of the system, and you also look at questioning where that power came from and talking to other white people to start working on this thing. Just like I, as a man, have to talk to other men when I see them acting wrongly toward women, because a woman may not even see that thing going down because the guy will only say it around me. So if not me, there is no check. And so the work of fixing it has to keep shifting to those who are benefiting from it being broken in the first place. And so that's part of how I'm feeling as well, and what I've been thinking about.
Yeah. You said something interesting, that the civil rights movement wanted to activate the conscience of white people. And I think that perhaps that's one of the maybe positive things that's happened here. But the problem, I think, for a lot of us is we don't know what to do next.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure that's a problem for you too. It's not obvious.
Yeah, it's not obvious. But here's the good news, especially, this is why I love the TWiT audience, Leo. I mean, I've hung out in the IRCs, I have seen the tweets. I've gotten so many people signing up on my mailing list or my text phone number explicitly because of this show. So I know a certain thing to be true, at least about a part of your audience. You're resourceful. This, of any crowd, you were on the internet before everybody else. You know how to Google good, right? Not the lazy kind. You know how to do real internet research, not just that front page or the top 3 or the ad purchase clicks that your aunt and uncle click on. And you can literally read between the lines. So now is a time to use that ability to find good information. I have taken a step and created something as a list of resources to start. There are so many people building lists like these, but on Instagram, which is where I'm kind of digitally living outside of Baratunde.com, my bio link goes to a lot of places. There's books, literally a bookshop that I set up today on bookshop.org, which directs funds to independent booksellers instead of Jeff Bezos, who I think, go out on the limb and say he has enough money. So we've covered Jeff, right? Jeff's good.
He's good. He's good now.
Jeff's good for a few lifetimes, which I think is about right. And now we can support the independent booksellers of this country. And so there are wonderful books that can help get people up to speed. There are people who do trainings. There's a woman named Rachel Cargill. She's on Patreon. She's on YouTube. She's everywhere we are as TWiT people. And she has live streams and curricula and Q&As and multimodal multimedia. There's an organization which is designed for the white American who wants to do something but just doesn't know what to do. It's called Showing Up for Racial Justice, SURGE. And you can type that into the box. And they've got years in the game of just trying to help folks who want to be helpful but don't know where to start. So there aren't many excuses. And I think especially with this community, I know the resourcefulness, so you can get there. It's also a lot of work, and it's a journey. No one's perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect human. I'm not a perfect Black person, not a perfect man, I'm not a perfect partner. I'm not aiming for that. Just try to be better. And raising that consciousness is going to take a lot of that type of work. There's people working on the policies. There's all kinds of reforms that we've been reforming. We've been reforming since we started breaking stuff. That's never ending. The consciousness shift is a lot of this softer, more intimate, more personal stuff. And it's going to require people where they are to ask, okay, what can I do? Where am I spending my money? What does my organization look like? Have we ever had a person of color in this position? Have we ever tried? Not that have we rejected anyone who happened to walk through the door. Have we intentionally sought them out? If not, why not? And it's not to beat yourself up and feel like a failure of a woke person. We're all failed woke people. It's a stupid word to begin with. We're all trying to awaken. That's the goal. It's just don't sleepwalk. But as we awaken, let's ask ourselves where we have control, where we have influence, what else can we be doing? And the lists are long, and there's very small actions and there's very big gestures and a lot in between.
Easiest thing to do, follow Baratunde on Instagram at Baratunde. His link tree is at linktr.ee/Baratunde. And I am on your text message chain. I love that. It's not a lot of messages, but when they come, I always welcome them. I feel like you're talking to me personally.
I am talking to you personally, Leo.
Am I the only one on it?
No, though it's funny. So I kind of launched the number, the first number.
Yeah, you changed numbers on me.
With you. Yeah, I've got a new number. It's 202-894-8844. And I've been learning how to use it. So I've got just under 1,000 people. But I don't intimately message with 1,000 people one at a time. Like that's crazy. What I do though, it's I send out alerts to groups of people based on interest and location. Oh. I solicit input from folks. So here's a real story. Last week when things were popping off in Minnesota, I sent a message just to my texters who live in the Minnesota area, kind of drew a circle around the city, a radius of a certain number of miles, offering just my heartfelt best wishes. It's hard for me, and I live in Los Angeles. I can only imagine when it's literally, your hometown, almost your backyard. Some cases, your actual backyard. That must be tough. If there's anything you want to share, let me know. And I ended up bringing one person. Minnie wrote back, and I ended up bringing him on my live show on Instagram that night. And he testified to what he had just been through. And it was way more powerful than me punditing. Right? People got to hear from someone on the front lines. I send voter registration deadlines. I send silly gifts on your birthday. Like it's not all serious politics stuff. I do my race thing. I do my tech thing. I do my fun thing all the time. So I'm learning how to connect with people at a certain scale and still be kind of intimate and personal in a way that's a bit different from a broadcast mailing list and certainly from a venue like Twitter. Both of which have their value. It's
really cool. And I have to confess, when you changed numbers, I forgot to follow you. So I just have followed you to the new number.
Welcome back to the fold.
I missed your texts.
Yes. Upgraded.
The great thing about having Baratunde in our life and in the TWiT family is that when things like this happen, we can personalize it. the thing that keeps us apart is this sense of the other, and all humans do this. If you're not like me, I don't like you. And so it's really important, I think, for us to have people that aren't like us in our lives, so that when things like this week happen, we understand it and we know it and we love the people that are involved and we care about them. And I care so much about you, Baratunde. I'm so glad.
Thank you very much, Leo. I care for you as well. And a little pro tip for the listeners, especially the white listeners who are feeling like you want to reach out to the Black person or people in your lives. First, that is a beautiful instinct to express sympathy and how can I help and how are you, etc. Also be prepared for people to not want to answer. Yeah. Just like anyone kind of in a grieving state. If someone in your family has just died, you've been through a trauma, you're not necessarily in the mood to process that for your friends. And so use that energy and that desire to help to, find someone who's made themselves available to, an author who's written a book. It doesn't take any emotional labor for you to read someone else's book. They've already done that work. It's been banked. So that scales emotionally in a different way. And talking with your own children and your own spouses and coworkers and colleagues about what this is bringing up for you. I think it's really, there's a level of intellectual kind of facts and figures and research that is necessary. But I think more important is for all of us to get in touch with how we're feeling and to be real about that. And to talk about that with the people who we feel safe being vulnerable around and work through it on both levels, the emotional level and the sort of intellectual policy, like how do we fix this kind of level? Because it's only when those two come together that we can really move forward in a way that lasts and doesn't kind of feel good for a few weeks or a few months or even a few years or a whole presidency and then roll back.
I feel better already. Go to Baratunde's World Saving Bookshop and pick up a book. Probably the first one you should start with was How to Be Black. I'm a big fan of Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me. Yeah. How do you pronounce it?
Ta-Nehisi.
Ta-Nehisi.
Yeah.
This is the most.
As teenager, so I learned how to say his name in the early 90s.
Such a moving book, a National Book Award winner, and it's required reading. And anything that we can do to help, we should do to help. We owe it to our friends. And I'm just glad you could be on with us.
And Leo, if I might real time edit your statement there, we owe it to ourselves.
And ourselves.
I think that it's both. It's both. And I think, again, I always try to shift the position because I do a lot of preaching out and I'm like, am I practicing inside too? And so I don't want to end sexism for the ladies, that's
good.
If the effect is the same, the reasons don't matter as much, but I think the effect will be changed by the reasons that motivate us.
Yeah.
And we've got to want this world to be just for all.
That's all.
We've got to want it for the lover that our child might be with. We've got to love it for the boss we might work for or the employee we might hire. We've got to want it for the health. I mean, the exhaustion that we're coming off of and we're still in is a pandemic. Public health. We're all connected, it turns out. And an injury to one is an injury to all in a really practical sense. It's in the air. We share this air. We share these resources. We share this economy. And we can share this love. So do it for Black people. I won't deny that. Yeah, absolutely ready for you to jump in the game, but do it for all people too. Do it for humanity. Because when we come together on that, then you're like, okay, climate change, let's do this. Now we got this. Now we got the Avengers lined up, ready to go. It's Infinity War. Let's throw down. We got Black Panther and a Norse god on the same playing field.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
That's one thing. Baratunde's never shied away from the tough topics. It's so great to see you.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're doing well. Follow him on Instagram, and then in his bio, there's that link to his link tree, and a lot of good resources there. A lot of good things we can all do for one another and for ourselves.